So in this lecture, we will make it so that new facts are not only displayed on the user interface, but also uploaded to our database on Supabase. So let's come here to our new fact form component. And so now we need to do a couple of changes here in the handle submit function. So right now we are only adding the new fact to the user interface simply by updating the facts state, right? But now we want to change that because we also want to update the new fact to Supabase. So let's do that. And for that, we are going back here to our Supabase API documentation. So that's down here again. Then let's select facts here, and then let's move down. So all of these are just for selecting stuff. Okay, then here you also have some other interesting things. So how to filter. For example, you have the equal, which we used before to filter for the right category. You have also greater than, less than, and yeah, you could experiment with all of these. But what we're interested in now is to actually insert new rows into our database. And so here is how we do that. Now this time around, let's actually write the code ourselves. Okay. So we are here in this part where we check if the data is valid. And so if so, we want to create a new fact. However, we will now no longer need to create this fact object. So let me comment this out, and you will see in a minute why that is. So I will comment this out, and I will create a new point 3 here. So upload fact to Supabase and receive the new fact object. Okay, so we have already our Supabase client. And so then we write Supabase dot from. So we choose basically the facts table again, just like before. But now instead of writing select, we write insert. And what we're going to insert is an array. And then here is the object with the data that we want to insert. So what we need to place here is actually only the text, the source, and the category. So that's this text variable, this source variable, and this category variable. The other ones we do not need. And that's because the ID is automatically generated by Supabase. We set these 3 here to a default of 0 inside of Supabase. So remember that from way back. So this is what we did. And the created in is also automatically generated. And therefore, we don't need to pass in any of this data here into this object. Okay, so only the data that is not automatically created or that has no defaults is what we need to place here. And this is actually already enough to create a new row in the database. However, we also want to get the newly created object back. So we want to receive it. And so we need to say dot select and just like this. And so this is then so that we can add this new fact object still to the facts state variable like we did down here. So we are still going to do this. Okay, so we have our query now, and now just like before, we need to await it. So we need to await, and since we are using await, we need to make this function here an async function. Again, because only asynchronous function can await promises and make the code stop or pause, basically. Okay, and now this will return, as always, some stuff to us, which is the data and the error. Give it a save, and now, just like we also did before, we can rename the data here and call it new fact. And so then this new fact here became blue, meaning that it's a new variable, just like this error. Okay, and now let's take a look at the console of what happens. So at what the new fact object looks like, and let's deactivate for now this part here. So for now, we will actually not re-render the UI by updating the facts state. So let's make sure and reload here. Let's just write something like amazing category. I will do technology and then post. Okay, and so the form was closed, but of course this new fact is now not appearing here. And again, because we didn't update the UI by setting state. Because for now, all I wanted to do is to show you this new fact right here in the console. So this is the fact that we just created and that Supabase then basically still fetched from the server and gave to us. So that's this one. And so as I was saying, the created ad was indeed automatically created, and the same for these votes and also the ID, of course. But then the category, the source, and the text is what we provided. Okay, now just notice that we are actually getting an array back here. So an array with one object. So if we want to do this, so let's put it back on here. So if we want to add this new fact to the state, we need to basically get the first element of the array. So just like this. And so now what will happen is that the fact gets added both to Supabase and also here to our local state. So if we didn't do this and still wanted to see the fact here immediately in the list, we would have to refetch the entire data. But we don't want to do that. So instead we want it to appear immediately. And so we added here to Supabase, but then also to our state array. Okay, so now that other fact should be here somewhere, that amazing fact. Yeah, here it is. And now let's write new fact in news, post, and there it is. So it was added here to the top of our state array. So that happened right here. And so that's really nice. So that works just fine. However, there's just one thing that we need to improve, which is imagine that it takes a little bit of time for the fact to be added. So for the fact to be uploaded to the database. So what happened if we then clicked multiple times here on this button? So that would create some kind of problem, right? Also, it would be nice to let the user know that the fact is currently being uploaded. So a little bit like that loading indicator that we have here for this list of facts, right? So let's do something similar. So what we will do is to create another piece of state which will basically indicate us whether the fact is currently being uploaded or not. So let's do that. Let's place these states one after another here. So let's say is uploading, and then set is uploading equal to use state false. So usually, of course, there is no uploading happening. But then as soon, or actually before we start this process here, we then want to set it to true. So set is uploading true. And so then we can use that variable a bit later. And actually, let's use it immediately so I can show you what it looks like. And here we can also just temporarily disable the closing of the form, just so we can see it. All right, so where are we actually going to use this is uploading state value or the state variable? Well, we can use it right here on our form elements, because there's one more attribute that I haven't told you about, which is the disabled attribute. So all form elements, including buttons, can have disabled. So we can basically disable them. And so when they are disabled, they will simply not work when we click on them. So a button will become disabled whenever we set disabled to true. And what is true as soon as we upload a fact? Well, it's the is uploading state value. Right? So let's grab that and let's paste it also here on this input. and also here on the select. Give it a save. And another one. All right, so you saw that, well, it was only very momentarily where the text here actually looked a little bit different. So it looked kind of disabled actually, but we couldn't really see it because it all happened so fast. So let's try our network tab again with slow 3G. But actually they are still disabled. So we cannot do anything. So basically what this means is that our disabled here did its job. And so we now need to go ahead and, of course, disable it. So basically reverse this as soon as we are finished receiving the data or also uploading the data. So set is uploading. So at this point we are done, and so we can set it back to false. All right, so let's reload. Now we have the slow 3G. So that's gonna take a few seconds, but I think we can wait here. Okay, let's share effect. And now as I click here, watch how this text here becomes a little bit more gray, indicating the user that it's uploading. All right. Let's turn that off. And now we have all these useless facts here that we just added. But well, that's how development works. So you always end up with a lot of trash data that in the end you don't have to delete. Now let's just turn this back on. Okay, and yeah, with this we are actually done uploading facts to Supabase. Now the final thing that we need to do with Supabase and also in our application in general is to make these buttons work. So they are not working at all. And that's the final piece of the puzzle that is missing until this small application is feature complete.